United Nations decades 2022 to 2032 International Decade of Indigenous Languages. Indigenous languages is called as indigenous languages. 2021 to 2030, the second decade of action for road safety. 2021 2030 United Nations decade of health hygiene. 2021-2030 United Nations decade on ecosystem restoration. 2021-2030 United Nations decade of ocean science and sustainable development. 2019-2028 Nelson Mandela decade of peace. 2019-2028 United Nations decade of family farming. 2018 to 2028 International decade for action water for sustainable development. 2018 to 2027 third United Nations decade for the eradication of poverty. 2016-2025 United Nations decade of action on nutrition. 2016 to 2025 third International Development decade for Africa. 2015 to 2024 that was declared as International Decade for Peoples of Africa Descent. 2014 to 2024 United Nations Decade of Sustainable Energy for All. 2011 to 2020 Third International Decade for Eradication of Colonialism. 2011 to 2020 United Nations Decade on Biodiversity. 2011 and 2020 Decade of Action for Road Safety. 2010 to 2020 United Nations Decade for Deserts and the fight against desertification. 2008 to 2017 the second United Nations Decade for the Eradication of Poverty. 2006 to 2016 Decade of Recovery and Sustainable Development of the Affected Regions. Third decade after the Chernobyl disaster. 2005 to 2015 International Decade for Action Water for Life. 2005 to 2014 United Nations Decade of Education for Sustainable Development. 2005 to 2014 Second International Decade of World's Indigenous People. 2003 to 2012 United Nations Literacy Decade for Education for All. 2001 to 2010 International Decade for Culture of Peace and Non-Violence for the Children of the World. 2001-2010 Decade to roll back malaria in developing countries, particularly in Africa. 2001 to 2010 the second International Decade for the Eradication of Colonialism. 1997 to 2006 a decade for the eradication of poverty. 1995 to 2004 Decade for Human Rights Education. 1994 to 2004 Decade of the World's Indigenous People. 1993 to 2003 the third decade to combat racism and racial discrimination. 1991 to 2000 the second Industrial Development Decade for Africa.